If you've experienced an emotionally abusive relationship, the chances are you learned that this behaviour was okay in your childhood. I want to share with you what the original wound is and understand who gave it to you. Welcome to the Divorce Sanctuary. I'm Elizabeth, author of Finding Lily and the A to Z of Emotional Abuse. And on this channel, I talk about healing from emotional abuse and divorcing emotionally from the abuser. I want to remind you, love should be unconditional, and divorcing emotionally and healing the original wound is life-changing. If you're new to the channel, please don't forget to subscribe. And if you're returning, welcome back and thank you. Please don't forget to put your comments below in the comments box, along with anything that you might think that's helpful to other people. And I want to remind you, this isn't a diagnostic tool, and I'm not going to say this is for entertainment purposes only, because nothing about this behaviour is entertaining. If you believe you are being manipulated, please reach out to a professional who can help you break away from the toxic relationship and who can help you set and keep strong boundaries. For the purpose of this video, I am going to use the term mother, but this equally could be a father. So let's start at the very beginning. The emotionally abusive mother herself experienced an unhealthy or abusive upbringing. She herself experienced trauma that was detrimental to her own development. And it is important to understand how narcissists treat their children. The children move into their teenage years and into adulthood with different experiences. And if you're given the opportunity to speak to them individually, you might actually believe they had different parents. When the aging mother dies, they are all mourning, but where some will mourn the loss of their mother, others will be mourning the loss of not ever having one. Emotionally abusive mothers use their children in various ways. They're used to hide dysfunction of the tribe, and some are used to take the blame for everyone. So like all emotional abusers, the mother has created a persona hiding who she really is. The abuse she experienced in childhood creates a void within her. She herself doesn't know who she is. She probably received messages in childhood that she was not worthy. She will have experienced 3 core wounds: abandonment, shame, and betrayal. And as a child, she didn't have the environment to support her needs. She creates and learns behaviour to protect herself from further hurt and neglect. And she then uses these behaviours with her children. The emotionally abusive mother is unavailable. She isn't there for her daughter emotionally or physically. And this might be something she learned from her own mother, or another wounding that she received during her childhood. And she becomes manipulative, controlling, and jealous. The most important thing to understand is that they parent from these wounds. The wounds of abandonment they experienced are passed on to the scapegoat. And the scapegoat in biblical times was one of 2 goats. The first was sacrificed, but the scapegoat was abandoned and then released into the wilderness, and taking with it were the sins of the tribe. So the scapegoated child is loaded up with the shame of the family and is punished for the sins of her siblings. The emotionally abusive mother was betrayed by her own family tribe, and she continues that pattern with her children. And this is why it's important to understand your role and find the wounds and trauma you received and heal them. And it's something that I've used in other videos on emotional abuse, that the gift that comes out of this is the healing. That is something that the emotional abuser will never, ever experience. They're never going to feel whole. And this abusive mother is so busy hiding behind a mask, protecting her fragile sense of self, or topping herself up on the supply that she receives from her entourage, she neglects her children. Her children grow up intuitively understanding the needs of their mother over the needs of themselves. They learn from an early age what they need to do and what they need to say in order not to cause or trigger a narcissistic rage or injury. The emotionally abusive mother expects everything to be done her way, and if that doesn't happen, she needs someone to take the blame. Nothing will ever be her fault, and she will blame shift to protect her fragile sense of self. There are different roles that her children can be allocated. There's a scapegoat, golden child, invisible child, truth teller, the helper. Scapegoating involves punishment rather than rewards, and it's based around judgment, and it can bring up feelings of shame, abandonment, and betrayal. There are temporary and permanent roles of a scapegoat. But for this video, I'm going to focus on the permanent role. A reasonably well-adjusted person might get annoyed if something doesn't go to plan or how they envisaged it happening. Being balanced, they can usually work through the process of events that lead up to a situation. The emotionally abusive mother can't do this, and she needs a person to blame for a situation going wrong. The role of scapegoat is given to one child, which means the child is open to family mobbing. Because we are programmed from an early age, it means that the siblings of the scapegoat will understand her role as well, and they will take on that role in blaming. They may even see it as a way of keeping it in the good books of the mother, or a way of staying out of trouble, knowing it doesn't matter what they do, they will never receive punishment for their actions. Perhaps the scapegoat is seen as a threat to the family unit. The permanent scapegoated child is possibly the only person in the family who sees the toxic patterns and is more likely to seek help from healing them. Her siblings who have bought into this family story continue the codependent pattern, walking on eggshells and keeping their mother's secrets, playing happy families. And from a very young age, stories were told about the scapegoat, so nobody would believe her. She would be undermined. She's the one that understands the dynamics, and she gets isolated and she gets criticised. And this will happen with all members of the family unit and also outside of it. They're told she's the one that always causes trouble and that she's the one that ruins it for everybody. And stories, as I said, are created early on in the scapegoat's childhood. Other members of the family may be actively encouraged to take part in this game, and the emotionally abusive mother will create a facade and many stories to back this up. She's wearing a mask and she will hide behind that, encouraging her entourage to join in. She's used as a screen to hide her parents' behaviour and the dysfunction of the family. Another pawn is the golden child, who is actually as much a victim as the scapegoat. The golden child is the best child in the eyes of the abusive mother. They are the child that gives or gains her more attention. It makes her look good. So they might excel in sport, or they might be beautiful, or they might play an instrument. They might be very clever. It's that association. They have bragging rights. It's the one that gains them the supply. This child is a form of currency. They are the vessel that brings attention to her from her own family. It's a bit like producing that male heir in some cultures. They will carry on the family name, or a male child or a female child holds prestige in a larger unit. And it has been for centuries, the royal families around the world would procreate for the son and heir. The golden child might grow up believing they do deserve all the attention. However, not all of them feel worthy of this role. Some grow up with survivor's guilt. And there's also a lot of pressure, as they may lose interest in the activity that gains the parent that attention. And the message that the golden child receives from a relationship is one of conditional love. And then there's the invisible child, another victim of this family dynamic. They're neglected. They fade into the background without an official role. They're not singled out like the scapegoat for the negative attention. They're just ignored. The emotionally abusive mother has self-serving needs. So if a child has nothing to offer, they get overlooked. They're overshadowed by the golden child. And believe it or not, by the scapegoat. They then spend time trying to get attention that could either be in a positive or negative way. They don't have the emotional maturity to understand the role of scapegoat and that it doesn't hold any value, that it is a punishment. They see it as attention. So the scapegoat is getting attention. Therefore, in their mind, it holds value. They then go looking at ways of gaining that attention. Children need attention. They need to be noticed to grow and to thrive. The invisible child grows into an adult wanting to be seen, and she receives a message as a child that you have to work hard to be noticed and to get attention. And with any abuse, The two favourite tools are gaslighting and triangulation, and the children of the emotionally abusive mother will have been triangulated. They are pit against each other. They are each other's competition, and she creates jealousy. And what their children end up doing is growing up protecting their mother, believing that she is the victim, when in reality it's her who is the toxic element. As children, we're sponges. So growing up in this environment, as in any environment, we believe that everything we're told is the truth. We have nothing to judge this against. And if you observe a small baby who is reliant on the adults around them to keep them alive, you can start to understand or understand how the programming happens. Up until around the ages of 7 to 8 years old, everything a child hears and feels they believe to be the truth. So the programming the child receives by the parent is, it isn't good enough. Their style is inconsistent and conditional. And to hide the dysfunction, the children receive messages that there is nothing wrong with their tribe, as the mother protects her fragile ego. And your research has more than likely brought you to realise how emotional abusers project out, and it's never their fault. So to protect a fragile sense of self, the emotionally abusive mother might even highlight faults in other family units and point out how the children are being treated. And this is in order to create a smokescreen to distract you from seeing the truth. And it's during these early years that your wounds are created. These are the original wounds. So the emotionally abusive mother has manipulated her children. They're controlled in every area of their life, and she uses her children like pawns for attention, and she programs them to validate her and protect her. And it's due to this programming that you probably found yourself in an abusive environment as an adult, work, friendships, or romantic. You were taught at a young age that it was okay to be abused. It's okay for you to take the blame for others' mistakes. You may have experienced that fight, flight, fawn, freeze, that trauma response, which is an automatic response to danger. Our nervous system's detecting danger in various different ways. So fight is the trigger where a person responds aggressively to something that's threatening, or it might be flight where the person responds by retreating or fleeing, or they might become hyperactive. Freeze response is where a person realizes they have no exit route. They become numb and they disassociate. And fawn is triggered when a person responds in a pleasing manner. They calm down the situation and they overflatter. As a child, you will have used one of these to survive your childhood, and you then take these patterns into adulthood. We have 3 core wounds: abandonment, shame, and betrayal. Do you know what role you played in your family unit? Perhaps you played more than one. Or the role of scapegoat might have been shared between siblings. Maybe you recognise the wounds that you've been given and you have been in one or more abusive relationships. The original wound is where this all started. It is the one you received as a young child. And this trauma, much like a physical wound, is very painful. Learn to talk to them and empower them. You empower yourself by doing this, and you naturally become repellent to manipulators. I hope you found this video helpful in some way. Please like and share and subscribe if you can to the channel. I will link my course, It Stops Here, It Stops Now. That actually teaches you how to talk to the wounds. There's so many other tools and techniques in there that will help you heal on a deeper level. Sending you loads and loads of love.